Welcome back to our module on being and becoming. What we're going to focus on in this session is our physical vitality. So, we spent the first session looking at more of a mindfulness practice that get us into a certain space. And that's very important because it grounds us in this deeper space. At the same time, we mustn't just leave it there, because there's a risk that people, as they do those kind of practices, just stay in that space that can be slightly disembodied or not really grounded in your body. And it's important to be working on our physical vitality and to really connect to our body, because that's the vehicle that carries us as we move into our work. So from an integral perspective, we go back to the 4 quadrants. We're really talking about that upper right quadrant here. The exterior of the individual. So where the mindfulness practice focused more on the upper left quadrant there, the interior of the individual, working on physical vitality, is balancing that out with the upper right quadrant on the physical organism of the individual. So here's a nice quote that summarizes it well from Bernard McFadden. The only way to fight disease or dis-ease is by increasing the vitality. You have to make your body so strong and so full of the forces of life that the symptoms will disappear. So what I did is I asked one of our other faculty, Deb Zucker, who's creating the course on physical vitality, what she thought were the key elements in this area. And she gave me this list. So let's just spend some time looking at them and think for yourself, where are you already doing things that seem to work in that area, or where might you want to develop further activities? So, top of the list, she had fresh air, making sure we're getting out and about and not stuck in the house the whole time. Related, I think, closely to exposure to nature. And there's quite a lot of research that's been done that really shows that being in nature, and that doesn't mean just kind of walking around in town, but really being in a place where there's plenty of trees and vegetation and green, really does shift our physical well-being. Apparently, it's a lot related to the frequency or the vibration that is present in nature, and how that strengthens the energy in your body compared to, say, the energy of a city, or when you're inside with lots of electrical equipment and so going on. So really spending time in nature is a key condition for maintaining our physical vitality. Next up on the list is clean water. I think our body is around 80% or so water. So it's very important that, one, we drink enough. They recommend a couple of liters a day, and that what we drink is decent water. Many different ways to vitalize it, or make sure that it's physically clean, but also energetically vital water. But to be very conscious of the amount of water and the quality of water that we drink. Natural light. So it's obviously related to being outside, the fresh air thing. But the natural light is important because it stimulates certain chemicals in our body that keeps us creative and alert, and regulates our waking and sleeping rhythm. So making sure that we get outside. You can also get lights now for your indoor spaces that reflect the frequency and vibration of actual daylight, which also really help to maintain your vitality. Getting enough rest is clearly key. It's during the night time when we're sleeping that our body regenerates itself, all the stress that we've had during the day. Physically, we regenerate, but also mentally. We process the kind of things that have been going on in our dream time. We work with all sorts of stuff that's been happening to us. And it's very important in the rest space to take the time to allow ourselves to regenerate, particularly as things get increasingly stressful. Diet and nutrition. Obviously the food that we eat gives us a lot of our energy. So being conscious of which kind of diet works best for you. Not that one is the right diet for everybody, Some people would say they need animal protein. Others say they feel better without it. There are many different options around diets in the world. So as well as taking into account the kind of socio-economic implications of our diet, choosing to eat organic, meaning that there's going to be less pollution put into the environment, clearly, getting a sense of where our food comes from. It kind of makes natural sense to me that food that comes from the place where we live is likely to support us more living in that habitat rather than food that may have been transported halfway around the world. So being conscious of diet and nutrition is a key one for our physical vitality. Unadulterated food relates to that previous point as well. So food that hasn't been unnaturally modified, you could say, through genetic engineering, but food that has come out of the natural life process is more likely to enhance the vitality of our bodies, which have come out of a natural life process, rather than more artificially produced foods that have various things added to them that our body then has to deal with and process, which it might not be naturally used to having to do. Digestion, so once we're eaten the healthy food, making sure that we're doing what we can so that that food is processed well in our body, because the food contains all the various nutrients, gives us the energy, and we need to be able to digest it well. So there are different approaches to being able to enhance your digestion, but something worth looking into if you've never paid attention to it before. Sleep. Related to rest, not necessarily the same thing. Rest, you can be taking throughout the day. Take a moment just to sit, maybe to do a little bit of the mindfulness practices that we were working on earlier. But sleep is the longer process, really needed for the deeper regeneration, both mentally, emotionally, and physically. So to get the amount of sleep that we really need is critical to maintaining our vitality too. Exercise, getting outside and making sure that our various parts of our body are moving is very important. Our muscles hold stress, so making sure that our muscles are exercised allows us to process and release stress from our system, and obviously maintains our vitality in the way that when we're exercising, we bring more oxygen into our body, and our oxygen feeds our brain, which keeps us more alert and smart and able to deal with complex challenges. A balanced nervous system. So our nervous system is what takes in the information and helps us relate to everything that's going on. If it's overstressed, then that's going to make us more contracted and not as available to do what we need to do. So being aware of our nervous system, maybe if you've never even thought about it before, go and take a look at, what is our nervous system? How does it work? What are things that enhance it? What are things that stress it out more? Conscious breathing, like we saw in the mindfulness exercise, the breathing is a basic foundation. We often don't pay attention to it because it's just always there, but if it stopped, we certainly would pay attention to it. So being aware of our breath, and there are cycles of breath or deeper forms of breathing, which we might practice while we're resting, that bring more energy and oxygen into our body, that again enhance our vitality. So paying attention to our breathing. And finally here, what Deb calls elimination pathways. So what she means by that is, we take in all sorts of toxins and stress into our body. So are we conscious of how we're able to release those through our body, flush stuff out of our system, both physically, but also more emotionally, mentally, and energetically too. So those are some points to be paying attention to go and look into in more detail if you like. As I say, there is a longer course on this on the Ubiquity platform that you'll be able to access. So pay attention to physical vitality. It's not a luxury. It's really important to keep yourself well, because that's what enables you to continue to do the work in the world. In the next session, we're going to look a little bit more at our energetic vitality, what that means and what various practices are that we might be able to develop to help us in that area.